Well, greetings out there, everyone in the YouTube world, from the squinty man himself, get out of the sun. But yeah, I thought I'd make this video today to tell a little story, quite a bit different to what I've previously uploaded here on YouTube. But yeah, it's just going to be a story about how I met my partner, Cindy, well, now my fiance. So yeah, and how we spent 19 months apart during COVID. In saying this, we're obviously very aware that there's many others out there right now that are doing it much worse than us. You know, children have been separated from parents. Squinty man's come back, but children are separated from parents, and you know, we're just very aware that there's many other people in much worse situations. Anywho, I think old Squinty Eyes here, we're head inside now, and we can get on with this story. I remember one day I'd finished work and I come home and I received a phone call, and I believe it was Bank SA and Port Adelaide Football Club. They combined together to make a competition to win a trip over to Shanghai in China, and you can bring a friend along. And obviously when I got the phone call, I thought it was a prank call, to be honest. I was sort of laughing, like, oh yeah, who's this? But yeah, it was real, and I was going to be heading over there for 5 nights in 5-star accommodation, flights paid, bring a friend, watch the football, and even better because I'm a supporter of Port Adelaide Football Club. But it was beginning of May. We took off here from Adelaide on Singapore Airlines, and we made our way across over South Australia, WA, and then across over to Singapore before connecting onto our next flight up to Shanghai. All in all, it was about 10 hours. So yeah, there we were. We arrived in Shanghai, and it's really quite an incredible city, incredibly picturesque. The harbour is incredible. You know, just about every night of the week they have a light show with all these laser lights and everything dancing off the buildings, and it really is quite spectacular. So yeah, being a friend of mine, we obviously enjoyed ourselves, went out a couple of nights, had some drinks, bars, whatever. I actually ended up getting lost after going out on my own, which I shouldn't have done, to a nightclub. My phone died, that's another story. But my poor friend, he almost had to call the embassy. But I made it home, that's the main part. 9 o'clock the next morning, I was tucked up in bed. You know, we absolutely loved our time there. You know, it was just a completely different culture. It was, you know, a different language, different food. And I thought, you know, the contrast of the city between old and new, well, it was just incredible and fascinating. I really loved it. I really had a good time. So anyway, Sunday came around, we went to the football, and we were sitting outside on the stadium that day. I remember I got horribly burnt. I looked like a lobster after the football. So anyways, after the football, we went back to the hotel, and you know, being the lobster that I was that day, looking like a beetroot face, I thought why not refresh myself with some of Shanghai's finest beverages, which I did. So I trotted off down to the local beverage. Yeah, I trotted down to the local bar right near the hotel, and boom, I guess that's where I met Cindy. She was there that night. So after talking and hanging out for a while that night, we decided we would all meet up again the following day, Cindy and her friend along with mine, and yeah, we all went out, and it was a great time. And it wasn't long after that, my friend and I went back to Australia the following day. Yeah, I was just really drawn, and I really wanted to go back there, and obviously, you know, Cindy was one of the driving factors to that as well. So of course, you know, we stayed in touch for the next 3 months. You know, we pretty much talked every day. Until I decided, you know what, stuff it, I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to go to China, and I'm going to try learn a new language, experience a new culture, and, you know, if I can have, you know, the last half of 2017, I left on August the 16th, I left to go back. I thought, you know what, I'll try and spend the last half of 2017 in China, then I'll come back to Australia and decide what my plan is from there. And it was incredible. It really opened my eyes to a new world, learning a new language for one, and being with Cindy, living with Cindy, and yeah, of course, when I went back over there, we became a couple, and it moved on from there, really. I met her family. That's an interesting experience when you're a foreigner, and yeah, I won't go into that. But it was good. They're actually super friendly. Some people, I feel, they maybe wouldn't have such a welcoming experience that I did. I was very lucky. They were very, very friendly and hospitable towards me when I first met them, and you know, ever since then, yeah, it's just always been fantastic, and very lucky for that. So yeah, 2017, it came to an end, and I really wanted to show Cindy Australia. So Cindy came back to Australia, and you know, spent Christmas here, New Year's, and it was like that for a couple of years, really. We both bounced back and forth. She'd come to Australia for a while, then I'd go over to China for a while, and then, you know, there were some periods where we didn't see each other for maybe 2 to 3 months, but we'd obviously talk every day. And you know, like I said, this continued on for quite a few years, bouncing back and forth all the way up until January 2020. So January 2020 came around, and yeah, so Cindy went back to China on the 21st of January 2020, and the idea was that I was supposed to be going over to China in about a month later, in end of February, to go there for Chinese New Year. And out of all places, where was I going to be flying to? Cindy doesn't live in Wuhan, she's not from that area, but I wanted to fly somewhere different so I could film some videos and then catch a high-speed train to where she actually does live. She doesn't live in Shanghai anymore anyway. But yeah, so anyway, all that crazy stuff happened with COVID, and I guess there was a period of a month or two, we're like, oh, you know, this will probably only last about 6 weeks, you know, this will be fine. You know, we spent 3-4 months apart before, so yeah, no worries, all good. But then as time keeps going on, it got to about July, and it had already been 6 months. So we're sort of thinking, okay, you know, by the end of the year, it should be okay. And, you know, in the meantime, sort of saying to ourselves, oh, you know, well, during the war periods, you know, all they could do was send letters, and they couldn't even see each other. So at least, you know, these days we have the technology where we can do video calls and instant messaging, so quite lucky in that respect. So I'd say at least for the first 10, well, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, did pretty well. It wasn't until about, I'd say, October, November that year, where I have to admit, it started to take somewhat of a mental toll, at least upon myself. I don't know, just when you're used to being around someone and all of a sudden you can't see them for so long, yeah, you have to admit, it really did take a mental toll on me. I felt, you know, lonely, all these sorts of things, but I'm not sure about the rules in other countries around the world, but at least in Australia, all international borders are closed. You can't leave, you can't come in if you're an Australian citizen unless you have an exemption. I mean, you can come in to Australia if you're an Australian citizen. You don't need an exemption for that. However, it's very difficult with costs of flights and flight availability. So I have to admit, I thought at that time as well, you know, it's going to be extremely difficult to even try and get Cindy to Australia. So for a while there, I didn't even bother thinking about it or trying, because I thought it was just going to be impossible, because if Australians can't even get back to our country, then how was Cindy, being a Chinese citizen, and my partner, how the hell is she going to be able to come to Australia? So it wasn't until about October 2020 when I actually decided, you know what, it says, you know, in the Home Affairs website, being in Australia, of course, you know, international borders are shut. However, if you are blah 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 blah, my partner being a de facto partner, they are allowed into the country, required you provide all the proof necessary. So that's when I decided to go through the process of filing for a visitor visa, and then the plan was to go and do a visa exemption, an exemption into Australia. Two different submissions you need to do. So the first one, I did the visa submission. I honestly would have said, I probably had about 30 documents prepared. I spent many hours on that, just showing examples, photos, proof of an ongoing relationship. So, you know, it was quite strenuous to get all that information. So after I filed that visa, for the visa, there was a period of about 8 months, didn't hear a thing. And I was like, far out. You know, this is never going to be looked at, you know, like, so 8 months went by, and it was about May this year. So by then I hadn't seen Cindy in over, 15 months, around that period. And I looked into it more. I thought, you know, I filed this visa so long ago, and how come nothing's happening? And I made a few phone calls to Home Affairs, and you know, finally worked out that I need a file. I could have, and I did not know, I could have filed for the visa exemption at the same time, and I didn't know this. So yeah, I guess at the time in October 2020, I was under the impression, from Home Affairs website at least, it stated multiple times on the website, you need a visa to file for an exemption into Australia. So, okay, that was my thinking back then. Okay, well, I need to get the visa first, and then once that's granted, then I can go for the exemption. But no, yeah, as I found out eventually, you can do them both at the same time, as long as you provide all the information, etc. So I essentially just provided all the proof that I provided for the visitor visa into the exemption for Cindy to come to Australia. And hey, just like that, I think it's about 2-3 days later, Cindy received an email, and she was granted a visitor visa in Australia, and also granted the exemption into Australia. So the only problem after that was finding flights. And I think, as we all know, at least in most parts of the world, flights right now are quite expensive. So we had to try and find a period when maybe there was a slightly cheaper flight. And yeah, we did. We found one for early August, coming into Adelaide here from Shanghai via Singapore, on Singapore Airlines. And yeah, booked it. All of a sudden, I think it was in the beginning of July, because a lot of cases started to rise in Victoria and New South Wales. The premiers there started talking about halving the international flight caps or arrivals into Australia by half. And at that point, there was only 500 people allowed to come into Adelaide. So now this halved down to 250 people allowed to come into Adelaide after roughly, I think it was the 11th of July or 13th of July, around that time. And Cindy wasn't coming until the 3rd of August. So immediately we thought, oh man, like now it's a 50% chance she's even coming after all this, you know. So I will say as well, during all these times, you know, being apart, you know, we'd message every single day, morning to night. We have video calls many times a week, and I guess we're very thankful that we live in these times now where, you know, we can send in instant messages and video calls and whatnot. Yeah, so obviously Cindy did arrive. Somehow she was one of the lucky people to be one of the 30-something people on the flight from Singapore to Adelaide via Shanghai. Well, going through Shanghai through to Singapore. That flight was full. Then Singapore to Adelaide, I think she said there's roughly 30 people on the plane. So extremely lucky to be one of those 30 people on that flight. She spent 2 weeks in quarantine here in Adelaide, and she absolutely did it like a champ. She loved every second of it, to be honest. She thought it was just like a holiday. Amazing food, you know, I think it was the first night for lunch or dinner. They gave her a steak dinner. You know, the next morning was a big English breakfast. Lunch was fish and chips. Then, a bunch of other healthy meals as well. But overall, for anyone to be complaining about at least here in Adelaide at the Grand Chancellor, where she did stay, the way they looked after him was very, very good. 3 calls a day, fantastic food, very friendly and tentative staff there that were at the Grand Chancellor. And for what you pay for the quarantine, compared to really what it's worth, you're paying a lot less. I managed to pick her up on a Wednesday morning at 12:15 in the morning AM, and it's been fantastic ever since. Incredibly lucky, incredibly grateful, and just super happy to almost feel like you can somewhat resume your life that you were living before, at least in our circumstances. We got engaged 1 week after she got out of quarantine, and happy days really. But anyways, that's the story. Very happy man right now. Very grateful. But until then, all the best, take care, and bye-bye.